Seezi Cheeye will remain one of Uganda's unforgettable journalists. The man whose paper used to split the atom unfortunately had his skull split by a reckless boda who knocked him as he crossed the road at Nakawa, killing him instantly. New Vision TV now takes you through Cheye's colourful and often adventurous career. Born among the Banyarwanda community of Buganda in Luwero 60 years ago, Cheeye did not go far with formal education and learnt his English from close association of highly educated men like Ben Bella Ilakut, who worked as editor-chief of the Uganda Times, the government paper that succeeded Voice of Uganda after the fall of Idi Amin in 1979. Cheye's interest in journalism could be traced to the association with Ben Bella. He was later to end up in exile and dabbling into liberation politics. Back in Kampala, after the 1986 changes, Cheeye worked briefly with the national broadcasters in Nakasero before finally setting up the Uganda Confidential newsletter in the early 1990s. Uganda Confidential came at a time when the media was still held back by the African big man syndrome of not blaming one's seniors openly. The paper that split the atom exposed graft in a way that Ugandans had not seen before. Cheeye addressed the big men and women of the day at a time when the NRM government, led by the youthful revolutionary Yoweri Museveni, was still extremely popular in the city and most parts of the country. Cheeye quickly became the most feared man in town. As Cheye's power grew, it unfortunately started getting to his head. He must have messed up his finances because he became dependent on the patronage of the system and started attacking government opponents unfairly. In 1996, during the campaigns for Uganda's first direct presidential elections, he launched a vicious attack on Dr. Paul Kawanga Ssemogerere, the DP leader who was standing against President Museveni. At the end of the elections, Cheeye was paid hundreds of millions of shillings by government agencies for adverts, although his circulation had dwindled considerably and would not have justified the payments. Eventually, Cheeye became Director of Economic Monitoring in the Internal Security Organization. Then he set up an NGO ostensibly for doing work on HIV/AIDS using money from the Global Fund. He failed to account for some 200 million shillings and was charged, convicted and jailed for 12 years in Upper Luzira maximum security prison. In Luzira, Cheeye reflected on his life and became a born-again Christian. When journalist Joachim Buwembo visited him in his cell, Cheeye said that being locked up was the best thing that happened to him. He kept thanking the people who hounded him to prison for having enabled him discover his soul. He said he would revive Uganda Confidential being released, but with a spiritual perspective. Because of his good conduct, Cheeye benefited from rebate and was released after 7 years. Emerging from prison, he appeared on several TV stations and apologized to those he hurt. It is exactly 1 year since leaving prison that he was suddenly killed by a speeding boda at Nakawa Junction in Kampala, and thus ended the life of the man who used to send a chill down the spines of big men as he split the atom of Uganda's public affairs.